Hello everybody! How are you? It is watercolor time, but the teacher doesn't know where her paintbrush is. That's always a fun thing to know. How are you all? Happy Memorial Day, right? It's coming up. It will be Monday. And we are celebrating that today. And I don't know where my favorite brush is. How is that even possible, people? I don't know. All the brushes I have. Guess I'll be using a regular one then, huh? Okay. So, we're making flags today. I'm very excited about flags. Oh, found it. That's great. Okay, so we are going to be making flags today, and I've always wanted to paint a flag with watercolor. I actually have never done it before, so this was my first one with watercolor anyways. And it takes a little bit of skill. It takes some skill to figure out how much water we need to put on our brush so they don't blend together. It also takes some skill to make these little stars. Now you'll notice that those stars are kind of blobs, right? No big deal there. And I did it the opposite. Those stars are supposed to be white, right? But we are going to do the opposite of that because this is art. We can have a little bit of leeway with it, but we still want to be respectful of our flag. So I want you to know that that is a change that I made, and that is not the correct way with the flag. But I want you to know that I know that. All right, I wasn't about to make all those white little things. We'd be here all day. So we're going to make flags today, and I wanted to show you what we did on Tuesday. Tuesday we celebrated watermelons. That's fun. You can go back to my YouTube and or my website or my Facebook page and see the making of this watermelon. It was fun. And today we are going to be making little flags. Let's talk about some supplies that we're going to use. So one thing that we're going to use is regular watercolor paper. I love watercolor paper. It is nice and hard, and it is very good for water, as in it doesn't buckle very much and it holds up really, really well. So when you are looking for paper, you want to start with 140-pound paper, and that is some really thick paper, so it holds up really well if you want to hear that. And I bought this set of watercolor paper at Michael's. It was $5 for three of, well, it was $15 for three of them. So that means it was $5 for 24 sheets, which was a very good deal for watercolor paper. So just know that that's out there. But in order to save my money and not have to buy watercolor paper all of the time, I like to take one of those pieces of paper and I like to cut them in half. So that is what I actually use for my flag, actually, is I'm going to use a half of one of those watercolor pieces of paper. Another thing that I'm going to use is I'm going to use a regular Crayola watercolor set. I am falling in love with this Crayola set. It works so nice. It's got very potent, very pigmented kind of watercolor in it, and I'm really enjoying it. So I will be using just regular Crayolas, nothing fancy. I'll be using probably a combination of brushes. I may have a small brush today because we got to get into those little stars, right? Those stars are a little tiny things, so I could probably get away with doing it this way, but it would take a lot of effort. So I will probably be doing the lines with this big brush, you see, and then I'll be doing a little baby brush like this. This is called a Simply Simmons round brush, and it's a number 2. and it is really, really tiny, so if that helps give you an indication of how little it is. So I'll be using that on those little stars and things. And this brush, for your information, was a Crayola brush that I believe was a 7 round or something like that. I'm not sure, because I have basically used it so much that the little piece of paper is gone. And let's see what else that I'm going to use today. I'm going to use my pen. This is a Uniball Signo pen. It's 207 bold. I'll be using that to play with. I'll be using a kneaded eraser that starts with a K, a kneaded eraser, just like dough, basically. And you see how I'm kneading it. This is how you clean a kneaded eraser. And it works really, really well. So, one of the things that I do is I use this to erase, because when I'm using a regular pencil eraser, 1, they don't last very long, right? And 2, they make that mess all over the place. So I don't like that mess, so I am going to use my kneaded eraser for that. So you'll need a pencil for that. At the very end, chances are I may be using some white paint, and this is a thing called a fine liner applicator. It is a very fine tip, and just to show you, you put paint in it. It has to be watered down paint, and it has this very fine little needle almost, to the point where this fits inside of it, so it doesn't, I can't do this and talk at the same time. Not to mention, I've got to have glasses practically to put that in there. Oh, goodness. There you go. And so it fits in there like that, so it doesn't clog or anything. But these are very fun to use. You can buy them off of Amazon, and I love them. So if you have questions about this, you can give me a call. But I absolutely love this. You're going to need some water. And your challenge today is trying to keep your water as clean as can be. Everybody hear me? So our challenge today is to try to keep our water very, very clean, which means you will probably need a paper towel. So I'm going to have a paper towel with me too. Okay? All right. I say we get started. What do you say? We all say yes. How's that? All right. Happy Memorial Day, folks. Hi, Penny. How are you all? And so one of the things that I like to do when I'm dealing with watercolor, or a good place to start when drawing anything, is to establish a border all the way around. And you'll see here on this one that I have, like, it's about 2 fingers all the way around here. Now, it's up to you how thick you want to make this border, but I just use that as a starting place. And especially since we're doing a flag and we're doing it's a rectangle, it's a really good opportunity to just go in and make a rectangle. Which, if you're using half a piece of paper like me, that's very, very easy to do, because you're dealing with a rectangle on your piece of paper too, right? So I have made a line all the way around. So this is my line. Now I want you to pay attention and look at this for 1 minute. The flag, or my flag, has Home of the Brave down here, right? So I'm going to give me a little bit of space. So that's about a finger width of space down here. So I'm going to cut this off right about there, and that's where I'm going to put my words. The rest of it is going to be mostly my flag. Now yours might look a little bit different. I'll say this, mine is starting to look a little too long, like the proportions meaning it looks a little funny and off. So what I actually think I'm going to do is I'm going to bring these in just a little bit. And what I'm doing is I'm paying attention to what the shape of this looks like, and if it looks more like a flag to me, which that proportion looks a little bit better. So what I did there was I shaved off more space on the sides to get me a more accurate flag shape into it, which, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Okay. And then I am going to erase as I go. You all are lucky that I'm not there with you, because if we were doing this with real paint, no erasers. Drives people crazy. Okay, so I want us to remember that this is home of the brave. So don't think about that. Let's now think about the square / rectangle of where the stars go. All right, so I'm going to come in almost halfway. And I'm going to make just a little bit of rectangle right there. And that's going to be where my stars are going to go. And I'm just going to know that, okay? Don't think I'm going to make all my little stars. Although I could if I wanted to. I could sit here and I could make little stars. Do you all know how to make stars? I'll do a few, okay? So one of the ways to do little stars. No, I'm not going to do it just yet. Don't do it yet. No. Let's do it and then start. All right. Let's talk about flags for a minute. The American flag, I have noticed, I've done some research on it. 1, 2, 3. There's always 3 right in here, okay? And it always cuts right there. Like all of this is on one line. So I'm going to just go ahead and continue this line all the way over. All right? And now I'm going to come in and I'm going to make another line. And another line. I'm trying to make them very evenly spaced. If I had to choose, look at that. It's a pencil width every time. Now, this one might be a little different. Let's see. So, I've made 1, 2, 3 lines in the middle of that. Let's see if that's correct. So, if I did this one is an R, this is a white, this is an R. Is that correct? No, because I need 3 R's, right? So, I've got to come in here, and I'm erasing what I just did, and I'm going to make them skinnier. So, I'm making that one. There's an R. R. Here's a white. So, there's a white R. Red. Red's for R, right? Do you see how I'm also not drawing a perfectly straight line every single time? I'm giving myself some wiggle room. We don't have to be so perfect all the time. This is practice, people. This is not a work of art. We're not selling it. And so you see that time I did it right. And I think it had to do with the fact that I actually went in and I labeled the things for me so I could actually keep my brain working. All right, now that's a very confusing, and I'm going to make this lighter. So good thing about this kneaded eraser is all I have to do is push it down and it takes some of the pencil marks up. You see how I'm making that a little bit lighter there? Okay, now you don't have to make those WRs like I did, but I wanted to make it a little bit less bright. So I'm going to come up to this section now. Let's look at this. This section has 1, 2, 3, 4 in it, all right? So, same way, I've got to fit 4 of them right here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to keep in mind how I normally, like, look at that. That is a little bit skinnier than my pencil. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to do that. And it is going to be an R. Then I got white. Then I have an R, right? I got to fit 2 more in there. There's a W. There's an R. Ooh, and I got to divide that up right there. And that is a W and that's an R. So the red is on top. And there we go. So you don't have to make it perfect, of course. And all these lines are a little confusing. That's okay. I just want us to have a little bit to go to, okay? So that's what I've done here. One of the things I'm going to do next is I'm going to work on Home of the Brave. All right? So I want you to think of this as 3 boxes, 3 rectangles. So I'm going to do Home as a rectangle, of the as a rectangle, and Brave as a rectangle. So I'm going to divide this into 3 equal parts. So do you see how I did that? I'm going to divide this bottom box up into thirds. All right, so there's 3. I've got to fit Home over here, of the over here, and Brave over here. So I'm going to go ahead and let's start over here on this one. And you see how I have these 2 little stars here? I like those, so I think I'm going to keep them. I might come in and go ahead and make them. So on these lines that I have, I'm going to draw an A. A thin A. Do you see that? The 2. And then I'm going to draw, instead of going in the middle where your A's are, you know, how you do it down here, I'm going to make it kind of high, and then I'm going to connect it just like that. And that's how I've got my stars. All right, so I have those placeholders there. That looks great. So now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to start with the H and the Home. You'll notice when I do this, I think of each letter having a box, okay? So I have to have 4 boxes in this little area right here, all right? So one of the things that I do is I'm going to sit here and I'm going to divide it in half, divide this in half, and divide this in half. So now I have 4 equal boxes. And now I'm going to write Home. Here's where you don't have to be perfect. I don't want to necessarily have it touch this line up here, and I don't really care if it touches this bottom line over here. It also doesn't have to be that thick, because when we go to paint it, we can make that work. So I'm just going to draw my H. Then I'm going to draw my O. And do you see how none of these touch any other line other than their letters? I do that on purpose because when you go to paint these words, you're going to want to have room. So there's one, and now I'm going to do of the. Now, one of the things I'm going to do with of the, those are 2 different words, right? I'm going to take this like that, and then I'm going to half it, and I'm going to put of over here, and I'm just going to do it right there. Now it's smaller, but I'm still making sure that I have space between all of that stuff. Okay, then I'm going to do the, so I have the T, the H, and the E. Now I want you to know that if doing it lowercase like this is hard to paint, it is harder to paint. I'm telling you, it's harder to paint. You may want to do all of this in caps. So I'm going to do an O, F, T, H, and E. That works fine. And now I'm going to come over here and write Brave right in there. Now Brave has 5 letters. It is a little different than Home, right? We've got to add an extra one in here. So this way I basically am going to sit here and I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ooh, did y'all see that? You have to play with this. Draw really lightly, because you're going to want to erase. I couldn't go straight down right dab in the middle because that would be in the middle of the A. Do you see that? So I had to do it a little different. So I have B-R-A-V-E. Ooh, and I have some more room. Did y'all see that? Teacher messed up. Don't you love it when the teacher messes up? So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. B-R-A-V-E. One of the best ways to do it, maybe, is if you go ahead and you add the A right there in the middle. And that tells you how big the rest of your letters have to be, right? So I'm coming in and I'm going to add a V and an E. I'm going to be real careful not to touch any of these lines. There's my R and here's my B. Now, this is the key. I get to erase all of my guidelines. If you have trouble erasing the guidelines, then chances are you've written too big. So I'm coming in here. Now, I know I kind of am cheating just a little bit because I can get my little eraser really, really little. That's why you should get a kneaded eraser. Kneaded erasers are fun. I'm on phone calls all day and I play with my kneaded eraser. Should be paying attention to the phone call. Yeah, it's a little distracting. It's kind of like silly putty. Do y'all know what silly putty is? It's my favorite. All right. So, here we go. Home of the Brave. All right. Now, I am just making sure I have all of that done, and I'm about ready to start painting. I'm not going to make all these stars. I'm going to make them with paint. But you would do it the same way these two right here were made, which was, I'm going to just take this away, an A. Here's an A. Y'all see that? Then, instead of going down here for an A, you're going to go up higher, and it's going to go straight across. Then you're going to connect this to this one. Then you're going to connect this one to that one. And now you have a star. Did y'all like that? Okay. So I have got this and I'm ready to start painting. Now you know in watercolors, it's nothing but layers and layers and layers. So I'm going to take my watercolor and I'm going to spray it first. This is the best way to do it, is to take some spray and to spray it. If you don't have spray, one of the best ways to do it is to take your water and your paper towel, and you put your paintbrush in your water, and then you put it in your color, and then you wipe it off. Remember, today's lesson is how clean can you get your water. So I've wiped it off. Look at that, no water. It was completely clean. And I'm going to come over here and do it to the red. And then I'm going to drop it in there. And you see, clean water. That is our goal today. All right. Let's start painting. So I'm going to put this one down here and here and here. How's that? Y'all can see that pretty good? I am not going to worry about this just yet. I'm going to worry about the reds. So I've got my water. I've got it on my paintbrush, and I'm going to my red. And then wherever I had an R, I'm just going to come in here. Now be very careful that you don't have a whole lot of water on your brush. You want probably more paint. And I want you to do it fast. I don't want you to sit here and go, ooh, because do y'all see in mine how messy it is? It makes it look more like art, doesn't it? We're not trying to be perfect here. We're going to have some expression, some movement. So that's why I'm doing little baby strokes over and over again. I'm not being perfect about it. I don't want you to be perfect about it. Art is not perfect. Okay, now you see I'm running out of some, so I'm putting some water on my brush and then in my, getting some more paint on it. Okay, and you see how I go little light strokes. Don't do it all at one time, just little bitty things. Okay, so now I have my first layer down, and I always go back to my paper towel, always. Now I'm going to come up, and I think I am going to work a little bit on, no, I'm going to work on Home of the Brave, I think. Yep. So I've cleaned out my brush. I've got some water on my brush. Again, how clear is your water? Then I'm going to come in here to my black. You might want a smaller brush for this. We're going to see how far Megan gets. So I have some black on my brush, and it's very lightly, and I'm using just the tip, okay? Just the tip. So, and I am holding it very similar to I would hold a pencil. I don't do this very often. And when I do a 0 or an O, I do one side, and then I stop, and then I do the other side, and I stop. Think of it as steps. So with the M, I do 1, lift my paintbrush up, do 2, do 3, and 4. You'll see how I'm doing it really easy, really nice and light. I'm skipping the star. I haven't really gone, I'm just now going back to get some more black on my paintbrush, and I did not go into the water. I just went to the black. And I'm coming over here and I'm going to do O. Again, 2 steps. Now this one's a little bit tinier because these words aren't as important. All right, very lightly. Now, because they're closer together, I'm going a little bit slower. And I'm being really light. Getting a little bit more paint on my brush. I didn't go back into the water. I just went straight to the paint. And then I'm going to do the B. 1 and 2. Okay? I'm going to go down. And I'm going to do it 1 and 2. You know, when we start learning how to make letters, they do it in steps, don't they? And that's just what you do when you have a paintbrush, too. So now I have Home of the Brave. I'm going to wipe my brush out on my paper towel. And now I'm going to come to my blue with my stars. So I've got some blue on here. And we're going to see if Megan can do this with just this big brush. So I'm going to come in, and you don't have to count all 50 states. It's not necessary. And I do little baby ones. Do you see how actually when I do it in paint, I do an A, and then I actually just do one line, and it fills in for me. Because I don't have to do all of that detail that I did when I was writing it. When I was writing it in a pencil. Because the paintbrush kind of fills in the blanks for us, doesn't it? That's why I like paint. I don't have to work as hard. Sometimes I'm doing bigger ones and sometimes I'm doing smaller ones. I'm not really paying any attention to how many I'm doing. I am not counting. I know some of you will just love to count, but you don't have to. Because, I mean, these are supposed to be white anyways, right? So this is not a perfect flag. We're not even, yeah, it's not a perfect flag. We're taking expression. It's our interpretation. That's what most art is. And your interpretation. Interpretation means the way you see the world, right? Now, I don't know about you. Sometimes I want to paint something and it is not coming out the way I want it to or see it. That happens. That's pretty good. I'm doing little bitty ones just like that. And I still have, I'm going to go back to some blue and I'm going to do these big ones. Now this time with these big ones, I am going to probably fill in just a little bit. You got to be careful with how much water you have on your brush though. All right. And if you notice, when I'm done, I put some in the center and it kind of like makes all the paint spread to the edges. That's what's fun about watercolor. Okay, I'm cleaning my brush. What does that mean? I'm putting it on my paper towel and I'm putting it in my water. How clean is your water? Look, you can see through mine. Can you see through yours? That's the key. Okay, so this is our first layer, right? We're going to do our second layer, and I want you to look at how many different colors I have in this. I have some pink. I have a dark red. I have a white. I even have some brown in here. So that's what's so cool about this. All right. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with the same red that I had. All right. And I'm going to this time do it only in a few places. Do you see that? I did 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to do it 1, 2, 3. Then on this one, I'm going to go back to 4. So it's almost, I'm almost going like, I'm just making little dashes in these lines. I'm not really paying attention to how, some of them are longer, some of them are shorter. It really doesn't matter. Some of them are skinnier, some of them are fatter. Just doing that over and over again until I have a pretty good, just like that. All right, and that's all we're doing right there, right? Do you see that? Do you see how that's little choppy lines? All right. Now what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to my, I don't think I'm going to go to my black. I like my black at the moment. I'm going to come back up here to my blues, but I'm going to see if they're wet. I took my finger and I touched them. They are sort of wet. Not really. They're pretty dry. These two are probably wet. So I'm going to come in with a blue again. And instead of making little stars this time, I'm going to kind of just do one little dot in each single one of them. You don't need a lot of water on your brush. You got to be real nice and easy, real gentle like a whisper. That's a Bob Ross quote. I know some of you don't know who Bob Ross is, but he used to paint a lot when I grew up. He had a TV show. He taught me how to paint, I would have to say. Among other people, lots of people taught me how to paint. All right, and I've done those little lines, those little dots. You see those little dots? All right, I'm cleaning my brush out and I'm putting it in my water. Again, my water is really, really clean. I'm gonna come back to these reds again. This time, I'm using a Crayola palette, right? So there's a red. This is the red I've been using, and I'm going to use this one right here. It's kind of an orangey red next, but that's what I'm going to use next. So I'm going to get some of that on my brush, and this time I'm going to come in and do, not everywhere, just in a few places. I do it overlapping some of those places that we just did. Sometimes I'm only doing the places that haven't been touched. Sometimes it's, and do you see how it's making it brighter? It's mixing. One of the things I love about watercolors is that it's transparent. So transparent means you can see through it. So that means if you go outside of your lines a little bit and you make a little bump like that, you can see it, and it makes some stuff really pretty. Like I'm doing it on purpose on some of these. Kind of makes the flag look like it's kind of waving in the wind if I do that. Do you see that? I'm kind of making a bump. I'm making little bumps in here, and that's kind of making it look like, oh, it's in the wind. You like that? Oh, it's in the wind. I'm cleaning out my brush. All right, which means I put it on my paper towel, and then I put it in my water. And next, I'm going to come in, and I think I'm going to change brushes. If you don't have another brush, that's okay, but I'm going to change to my baby brush. So I'm going to get my baby brush, and I'm going to get me my black a little bit, and I'm going to come back here to the Home of the Brave. And I'm going to just do a little bit more. I think I'm only going to go on one side of all of these. You see I'm only doing one side of the letter. Just making a little bit stronger on that. And just going in and making it a little darker also. All right, so I've done one side, and now I think I'm going to go ahead and do the other side. Don't you like it the way I change it up? Yeah, it happens. When you get to playing with art, you just sometimes know that you need to do this. That's called your intuition. Your intuition. That's like your gut, you know, when you know something's right or wrong. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into my blue. I forgot to do blue dots in these, did you? I'm going to come in with my blue again, and I'm going to come in and see if I can't add just a little bit more blue and maybe some more points. When I'm making points, I'm just making long lines, just like that. On these here, I think I'm going to go to a darker blue now. And I'm going to add just a little bit more of those little lines that I did the first time. Right? I'm just kind of coming in, and I'm not even doing every single one of them this time. I'm only doing a few. So this is adding variation, and sometimes they're starting to look like little blobs. It doesn't matter. People know that those are stars. You don't have to spell it out for them. It's not necessary. People have brains, and those brains can fill in the blanks. Be mysterious. Okay, I'm liking that. I'm going to stay with my small brush, cleaning it out, and I'm putting it in the water. This time, I'm going to go for, I think I'm going for, maybe my brown, honestly. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with some brown. And I'm going to come down here to the bottom of some of these and do a few. You see how I'm just picking and choosing some bottom. I'm not doing it at the top or I'm just doing it down here towards the bottom of each one of these stripes. It makes it a little bit darker. You can sort of tell that it's brown, but not really. because it's transparent. Transparent means you can see through it, right? So here we go. We've got that happening. And I think one of the things that I'm going to start doing now is I think I'm going to go into some pink. So in Crayola, they have this pink purple color up here. It looks like it's literally like dark as black, but it's really a pretty pinky color. And now I'm going to come in with my small brush and add it in. This time I'm going to the top of the what am I saying? The top of the stripe. And sometimes I'm making sure that I get it on the white so you can see it. Y'all see what I mean by that? Oh, it's hard to tell, isn't it? Like right there, I went up. The lighting is not helping things, is it? This is where you can get a little free, right? Like you can start going, oh, I like that, so I'm going to add more there. Or I'm going to get a little bit more messy in there. See that? I am doing like that. I'm liking that. I think that looks pretty good. So one of the things I think I'm going to do now is, I feel like my blue is a little dry, so I'm going to make a little bit of a gray. So I'm going to take my black and I'm going to put it over here on my palette, on my lid. You see that? Then I'm going to put some water in it. And I'm going to put several drops of water in it. You see how I'm making it lighter? Every time I do that, I'm making it lighter. So I have this color now, and I think I'm going to go in before, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm adding it in a few places. And it's a really thin line. And when it combines, it actually looks more purple than it does black. We're just adding a little bit of shading to things. Now, I'm going to add a few of these lines to some of the stars. So really nice and light. And I'm doing it on one whole side. And it's basically just a dot. I don't know if y'all can even tell what I'm doing. Another thing that I think I'm going to do is I'm going to add all along this edge over here. You see this edge? I'm going to add this black gray right like that. All the way down. Okay. All right, I'm liking that. So I'm feeling pretty good about this. I don't know about you all, but I'm feeling pretty good. I'm going to let mine rest, which means I'm going to let it dry just a little bit. And I'm actually going to hit mine with a little dryer. You just sit there and fan it if you don't have a little hair dryer. But I'm going to dry mine real quick so you can see my next step. Alright, so this is pretty close to being dry. It doesn't take too long for stuff to dry. And now I'm going to take my black pen. Alright, so on my black pen, I just did this so I could bend it. Yep. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to make sure all that is dry, which it wasn't because I smushed it, but that's okay. And I'm going to come in and every once in a while I'm going to draw one of those stars out. I'm not drawing every single one of them, just a few. Alright, that makes them darker. The other thing I'm going to do is come in here and scribble. Yeah, you heard me. And it's not a straight line. They're actually very, what's the word for it? Curved. I'm following, and they're short little baby strokes. And I'm doing it on both sides, just like that. And my dog has found out that people are here. All right, one of the things I'm doing now is doing this little area to show that this is the end of the line. So I'm putting little vertical lines. One of the things that I love to do, I don't know if you can see this, but I have these little twisty things. So my twisty things are just little things like that that come in, and I pick it every once in a while place to do it. All right, so I'm happy with those twisty things. I'm going to come down here to Home of the Brave. This is where I start making my words a little bit thicker. So I outline my entire letter with this pen, inside and outside. You see that? And when I do that, it makes it thicker. It makes it messier. But it's giving just a little bit more definition to each one of these. Now, you might have trouble when you get into these little tight ones. I suggest if it's too tight, don't worry about it. Just forget it. But if you can, take your time and do it like that. All right, so here we go. I have my bee and I have my heart. I want to get to my white part. I want to show y'all what I can do with white to see if you like that. So here we go. All right, I'm feeling pretty good about that. So now I'm going to take my white paint. This is something called a white fine line applicator. You can buy them off of Amazon. This is, I think, a 20 gauge or 18 gauge. I'm not really sure. I can't tell because it's been used so much. But you put white paint in it, and it's very, very thin. But you can get really fine details with this. So I've got some paint in here. I'm going to test it over here. And then I'm going to scribble like that. And do you see how when you add white to watercolor like this on top of it, how bright it gets? Isn't that beautiful and so much fun? So, and do you see how I'm not doing perfect lines? I'm scribbling. And I think I'm going to do just a little bit down here. And I might go with a little line on each one of these up here at the top. Kind of make it look like bubble letters, like they have a little highlight to them. I like it. All right, I'm going to come in with some of these with some blue white dots in the middle of them. Again, this is not a perfect flag, right? This is my interpretation of the flag. All right, liking that. Now, I will say this about this little thing. You have to be real careful that this little thing fits into this little thing, and it is really hard, especially if you need glasses. All right, and so sign your work, date it, and have a happy Memorial Day. Be careful, be safe. I want you to know that after Memorial Day, I'll only be doing these free classes once a week. I think probably on Tuesday. I might not start back up until June. I need a little break. So next week I might take a break, but I'm just going to do one from now on. But you can always check out all of mine on my website. And it's meganbaileygill.com. And I will see you all later. Have a very happy Memorial Day. Happy summer, people. Woo woo! I hope the weather's nice. It doesn't look like it is going to be here. but you never know. All right, guys, I'll see you later.